Hey, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and we're back again. This time our pandemic project is going to be one that I just kind of pulled from a group of reels that I have, because I've been doing direct drive reels every now and then. This one came up. This is a Fluger Akron, for example. It's an early direct drive reel that has the level wind feature. Now, direct drive means there are no drag systems in these, and I just did a Penn 77 SeaHawk, and so I mentioned during that video that Ocean City also made one similar in nature. Theirs was called the SeaLake, and it was the model 930, and that's the reel that we have in front of us right now. So I'm going to take this apart. This one's a nice survivor. The reel was made in the 50s. Got a little bit of dirt to it. We'll see if we can clean some of that up. But otherwise, it's working. There is a spool chirp every now and then, and sometimes that can be fixed and sometimes it can't. I suspect right now that the answer is that it's because we're missing that screw over there, and we'll see later if I can find the screw. But for the purposes of the video, let's assume that we will have the screw there at some point. Okay, so it's a very uncomplicated reel. It has the plastic or the Bakelite or Melamine or whatever those materials were from the side plates. It doesn't have any kind of spool adjuster on it, so it's nice and tightly engineered. It has a straight spool, and this is a case of big gear is going to drive the little gear. We'll have a main gear that'll be attached from the handle here, and we'll have a little gear on the spool, and that's pretty much the construction of this reel. So let's take it apart, show you how it's made, and if you have one of these, how to service it. And while we're doing that, I want to thank our first responders and our essential personnel and everybody who's working to keep us safe during the pandemic. Also like to thank the folks that have developed the vaccine and those that are in the process of distributing it. Hopefully that will help to restore our lives to some sense of normalcy. I guess that remains to be seen, but in the meantime, thank you for your efforts in developing that and pushing science to the point where we may have a solution. If you're a first responder, police, fire, or involved in keeping the food chains and everything well stocked, then thank you as well. All right, so you'll notice a couple of things. I'm taking the screws out and removing the side, all of the external pieces. And when I'm doing the external pieces, I like to lay all of the screws on the deck of my bench. I want to make sure that they're all the same, because if they're not the same, then I want to make sure which ones are different and mark the locations of those. And this reel looks like they're all the same. There's 5 of them, and you'll notice that the top bar came out because we're missing a screw on the other side, and I'm thinking that's probably why that little spool chirp was occurring when it was hitting the top of the post. Alright, so the whole side plate will come off now, and as you can just see, it's relatively uncomplicated. There's a big gear held in by an axle stud. There's another gear on the shaft here. There's a spool and a back end. So it's not a very difficult reel at all. And my take on this is, if you find one of these for sale, maybe on a local garage sale or a flea market or the like, you would do well if you notice that maybe it's just running tight. That usually means that it's out of lubrication. And how does it get out of lubrication? Well, it's been stored for quite some time, for sure, probably sitting in a hot shed or maybe a garage or someplace, and the oils just evaporate, and the greases, they tend to dry out, and when they dry out, they tend to clog. So what you wind up with is a reel that's not performing optimally because it's got dried grease it's trying to overcome, and the grease, instead of being a facilitator, is actually an inhibitor. I'm going to use a little bit of a chrome polish. In this case, it's turtle wax on a piece of 4-0 steel wool, just to kind of clean up the metal a little bit. Now, this metal is better than some of the metals I've seen. These were lightly chromed, so you're never going to restore these in any kind of way. You'll usually see fade, particularly if the reel has been used in a saltwater environment. But overall, this one's in pretty good condition. All right, I just cleared that out. I'm just going to let that sit for a moment. I'm going to do the same thing over here. We're just going to use that. I do notice that there's a lot of dried grease on the side of the spool here, and if it wasn't that post that was doing it, it could be perhaps that there was a puddle of grease that dried, and as it was making its way around the reel, it was just chirping on something, making that chirping noise. But regardless, it's going to be taken care of. All right, so we've cleaned up the spool. Let's go ahead and grab a paper towel to remove the polish. This feels like an aluminum spool. It doesn't appear to have any corrosion on it, which is good. And it just has a little bit of dried grease that we took care of. The spool gear comes off. This is not a free spooling reel. When you go into drop or casting, this is going to backpedal on you. It's a reel that's often referred to as a knuckle buster, in that if your knuckles get in the way, you're going to get hit by the handle as it spins backwards. On the spool gear, notice you have a flat side and you have a side with an indentation in it. The side with the indentation goes to the inside of the reel. And we're going to use some fishing reel grease. Now we're going to use Penn Precision reel grease to put some grease onto the shaft. We're going to install the gear back onto the shaft, and we're going to give it a good amount of grease there. We're going to put the same on the back side of the reel. This does have a click mechanism. You'll notice on the click mechanism on this side that it has a nice point on it, so it will make a loud click, and it has a brass ring that causes that click noise. And we're just going to get a good puddle of grease into that side bearing hole there. There's no bearing there. It's just an indentation to hold the spool. And then we'll come back and we'll put that spool in its place. Okay, and we'll turn our attention to this side. Now this side is a two-piece, so your axle shaft or your handle shaft will come out, as will the main gear. And this is very tight, so that kind of tells me what was going on there. So let's go ahead and clean that up. I'm going to use a penetrating oil as a degreaser. I'm going to use my paper towel first. I generally shouldn't need much more than that. Let's see. So something to bog down reels is always the dried grease and dirt. And that's probably the number one problem when you get a tight reel like this, especially with the limited number of moving parts on it. It's usually that there's some old greases and the like, and there is in this reel. I'm going to cover the hole here with my finger, and then I'm going to put some penetrating oil into that cavity there. Nice good old amount. And then I'm going to use a cotton swab, and hopefully we're going to get some more of that old grease out of there. So these reels are uncomplicated and they can last a lifetime. There's very little that's going to destroy this reel in terms of mechanicals going badly. I showed you the one earlier that was out there with the level wind feature to Fluger Akron, and if you introduce a level wind feature to a reel, well, that's a couple of more things that can break there, and particularly if you get hung up on a snag. In this case, you just basically have a direct drive reel. There's no drag washers or anything like that that's involved in this. It's very simply a big gear drives a little gear. I'm checking inside, all that dried grease is gone. Now what you would like to do, it's good practice, get a brush and just run it through the teeth, just to make sure that your eyesight isn't failing and that if there's something stuck in there, you get it. I had a fellow send me a reel the other day. It was a level wind reel, and they told me that they had replaced the idler gear, which drives the worm gear, and that it still was running rough. Well, turns out that there's a spool gear on the back that drives that idler gear, and it had a broken piece of the old idler gear that they replaced lodged in the teeth. Well, that's certainly going to cause bad performance every time it comes around to intersect. That one gear was clogged and became a problem. But if you take your time and you go over all of the parts, even if they don't look like they need any kind of service to them, just take a moment to clean them out anyway, and that will make all the difference. Okay, grease onto the little point that's going to go there. I reinstall the main gear in here. And that's got a square that's going to drive off of that, and unfortunately, as I just started to put it in, it came off. Just take your time, make sure it goes back in the right way. It looks like we got it now. And then we can just go ahead and reinstall the handle, because if you don't reinstall the handle at this point, that handle could pop out as you go to reassemble the reel after you've put the side plate on, and then you won't have any way of grabbing that handle with the screw to hold it in. So I'm going to take the screw out at this point. Take the side plate that we just installed the gear on. Keep my finger on the back of that gear as we go to put the handle on. And then we can put the screw in. Now the handle will get in the way of the mounting the crossbars and the side plate, but it's just a chance we're going to take at this point. And I'm just going to tighten this down. And this is actually a good time to take a test, see how it's all going there. Yeah, we've got all the difference in the world in spin now. This is what I mean by knuckle buster. This is going to backpedal on you. Just as it goes forward when you're reeling in, this is going to backpedal, and if you've got your hand in the way when you're casting, that will hit you in the knuckles. So it's an aptly deserved naming of it, and just be aware of that when you go to cast. Okay, I'm just finding the top one because that's the one that is missing the screw on the other side. So I want to go ahead and put that metal bar in on this side before I go over to the other side. So now we can mount the reel to the side plate. And you do have to mesh into the small hole just like that. And now we can grab our side plate screws and install them. So if you like what you're seeing, I hope you do, and you want to see more of my reel repair and general conversations on the fishing industry, different types of fishing reels, some product reviews, some narratives on how to sell and how to buy fishing reels and the like, and even previews of the projects that come into my shop. If you like that kind of stuff, then I'm going to ask you to subscribe, and if you do subscribe, please hit the notification button. That way you won't miss any of the episodes that I post. And I know that I have a wide group of followers that are interested in all different types of reels, and I basically publish the reels that come into my shop for service and repair. So it happens to be that I'm working on an old Ocean City right now, but tomorrow I might be working on a new Penn or a new Shimano or a lever drag reel or a low profile bait caster. It all varies, and that's actually one of the things I enjoy about my shop, is that I'm not limited to a particular brand or a particular type of reel. We're in the Northeast here, and we see all kinds of fishing, everything from saltwater, which is the dominant type, to bass fishing and inshore and outshore and deep canyon fishing, and all kinds of stuff comes up. So you'll notice how this is cleaning up nicely. I just used a product called Penn Rod and Reel Cleaner, and it does wonderful on this plastic. I haven't found many things that are better than this. It's got a cleaner and a polishing agent in it, and it just, look at how it just restores this the luster to this plastic. Now, in some, or whatever this may be, I'm calling it plastic, somebody will correct me. But what I like about it is that it just does a nice shine to it and kind of makes it a nice finish overall. And I keep transferring some grease from my gloved hand here, but you can see how nicely it cleans up. All right, I just pushed the post out of the way a little bit here. We'll see if that was the cause, and that appears to be the cause. We had that spool chirp before. I'm sure it was from the missing screw, and all we have now is just a little bit of noise coming in from our handle knobs. So we'll just put a little drop of oil in both of those and let that sit. And we're going to call this one done. So this is the Ocean City 930 SeaLake. It's a direct drive reel made in the 1950s. A very simple concept. Big gear drives little gear, and the little gear drives the spool. no anti-reverse, no drag washers. The drag is the tension you put on it with your fingers, and that'll help you control the fight. And if you have a fish that's running, well, you're just letting him run it out, him or her, run it out, and then you're going to backpedal coming back in again. So a nice reel overall. It's a classic. It's been around a long time, and you take care of that reel and it'll be around for a long time to come. So with that, I'm going to wish you all a great day. I thank you for watching. I hope you subscribe. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. It doesn't have to be about this particular reel. Any kind of question fishing related, I try to respond to. And finally, if you have a reel that needs to be serviced, well, I do that too. And if you contact me by email on the business card that follows, I will be happy to provide you with the repair information. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.